All right, hey everybody, we are back with Dr. J, Dr. Jason, and we are going to dive right in today. Just a Frontlines update, what you're seeing and hearing.
Yeah, some quick updates. So the numbers are unfortunately continuing to increase, really across America. There's been some new information that there are some vaccines that are, or at least some items that are certainly in the works of being tested. How far along and what that data is going to show is going to be very interesting. I think the hospitals in my area at least have really started to at least streamline the process and getting back to some level of normalcy. We're still wearing masks in the hospital, and I find that even in the community, more people are now subscribing and endorsing the fact that we should wear masks all the time. So I think it's a very good thing. I think it helped a number of countries, and hopefully we've really learned from it.
Do you have any kind of feelings or predictions on where we're kind of headed now?
Well, I think, everyone's waiting for the second wave, so to speak, the so-called second wave. There have been some reports that Louisiana is now actually right in the middle or in the midst, at least in the beginning of the actual second wave, and that's where we're seeing this bump. How accurate that is, only time will tell. But I think overall, it's this return to school guidelines that have been highly suggested by the CDC and other governing bodies. I think it's going to be a positive thing. Eventually, we're going to see a vaccine. Eventually, this virus is going to burn itself out. And my hope is that we are going to return to some level of normalcy. It's not going to be like it was before, but we're going to be essentially a cleaner country and hopefully a cleaner world.
Right. And I was going to ask you your thoughts on that. What do you, for parents out there who are getting ready to or thinking about sending their kids back to school, what do you think are some of the things they should know, and what are some of your recommendations to some of the concerned parents?
So I think that each community that are allowing the kids to return to school are taking some really necessary and very strict precautions. They are standing by the rules and standards of social distancing. They're ensuring that the kids are washing their hands and just practicing really good hygiene. My hat goes off to, at least locally in some other areas that I've been able to visit, Nashville's for one, where some of the kids have returned, as young as pre-K all the way up to some of the upper level grades, and even in high school from the local level. They are practicing social distancing. They are very cognizant that this virus is still alive and well, and that there are dangers there. They understand that this thing is attacking, just all demographics, whether you're younger than 10 or older than 10, or it's not just a very, very young or very, very old. So I'm extremely proud. My hat again goes off that they are making this gesture at least to focus more on true safety, cleanliness, hygiene, and social distancing and washing hands for all of the students going back. I think the parents need to understand that they could help out a whole lot as well. Just a constant reminder to their kids and making sure that they have their necessary sanitizing products prior to going to school and ensuring that they carry those things throughout the day. So again, you're still looking for the same symptoms, whether you things like headaches, nausea, vomiting, coughing that doesn't go away. The same things that the CDC and your local government continue to bark, that if you have some suspicion that you may be sick or ill, don't send the child to school. Other than that, still take those necessary precautions, because let's face it, we're still learning about this virus, even, now 5 to 7 months in. There's just still a lot we don't know about it.
Now, what are your thoughts on a vaccine, and what have you kind of heard?
So there are multiple companies out there, whether it's in hand sanitizing or true vaccine. A number of companies that are striving for a vaccine, but we are going to be testing a vaccine at least in the United States. There's no exact date. Certainly there's a number of things that need to happen. The Surgeon General is going to weigh in. I'm sure Dr. Fauci is going to weigh in, and other members of the government. The task going to weigh in. But, we're at now, at least from a global standpoint, 21 million confirmed cases with approximately 765,000 deaths. In America alone, that number is 5.3 million with about 168,000 deaths. So they're really pushing the label in that timeline. They want it to be short, but at the same time, they want it also to be very, very safe. We don't want this to get out and the vaccine becomes something that really doesn't help, but we believe it helps. And so I think they really need to still stand by the guidelines of what true studies and true trials come to be. But in this case, it is a crisis. So, it's going to have to be somewhat, I guess you could call locker room medicine, kind of like the hydroxychloroquine that we know that does work. But in terms of the vaccine, they do have to take the necessary precautions to make sure we're going to be safe once it's finally administered.
Do you think it's going to take a vaccine since, there's so many different people not practicing social distancing, so many things that are starting to open and, bumps and second waves? Do you think the vaccine is not really the answer, but you think that's going to bring things back down a little bit?
I think it's going to bring things down in terms of coronavirus, but the world needs to understand that this is a message. This is the phones ring and pick it up, that we have to just be a cleaner society. You're going to have to continue washing your hands. This is not the only virus out there. Right. There are a number of different viruses. This thing can, there are multiple strains of it. Some people get really, really sick. Some people are completely symptomatic. So once coronavirus hopefully is eradicated, there may be another one, another form, or some other virus that's coming. And so really the practices of washing your hands and social distancing and things like that, those are going to be those items or those things that are going to bring us to a decent level of normalcy. But we can't go back to where we were. We just simply were not a clean global environment.
I just wanted to hear your thoughts, also as a former athlete, almost like a two-part question. One, what are your thoughts on them trying to reopen, because there's a lot of money that's going to be lost if they don't? And second, from an athlete's point of view, what if you had to make a decision, what do you think you would do at this point?
It's a very excellent question, both parts. I do think that I think they should go back. I mean, it's an individualized question. Those athletes that feel, maybe they've lost someone and they've gone through that and they don't want to get back on the field because, it's really hit them hard. I understand, without question, back away, don't play. Mm-hmm. So I think athletes, by just in general principle, are going to be much more healthier than the general public. They're going to be able to contend and defeat different infections much better than the general public. And so I think that eventually it's going to be a point where I would certainly advise, under the necessary precautions, to return to the field, into the basketball court, into the baseball diamonds. There are thermal imaging cameras that are out there now, and these cameras are capable of scanning multiple people at the same time. They can scan 10, 15, 20 people at the same time. And, these superficial wireless thermometers that people are using, they're not really accurate. These cameras, and I have one in my office, they actually detect the temperature of your tear duct, and that is basically the warmest place in your face. So I think as technology continues to just explode on the market, and there's a number of different things that are on the horizon, just in terms of screening multiple people and things like hospitals and airports and football arenas, basketball arenas. I think that's going to be also key, just in terms of screening, to keep the athletes as safe as they possibly can. But I think the athletes are, again, I would favor going back if I were an athlete. I haven't had any family members that have died from coronavirus. So while I think it's individualized, overall, I would support a return to play.
Very good. Now, you said there's some cool tech on the rise that's going to help with screening. Is there any, could you talk a little bit more about the thermal and anything else you're hearing about?
Yes, absolutely. So I think that, the thermal cameras, and there's a few companies out there. I know there's one in Tennessee, there's one in, Houston, and there's another one in Nashville, in Spectra. And those companies have been doing thermal technology for quite some time. We use it in the brain, looking at different atmospheres of temperature drops in pathological tissue like tumors versus good tissue. So it helps us operate in better corridors. Temperature screening is, we found that to be pretty reliable. We know there are other signs and symptoms that can occur prior to temperature elevations. These thermal cameras can pick up, signatures that are just incredible with just incredible accuracy. I think that's going to be a real game changer for so many different reasons, and they're actually accessible. They're quite pricey, they're quite expensive, but I think that more and more companies are going to start buying it, and they understand that life is doesn't have a price tag on it.
Right. Is there anything else, final closing thoughts that you would like to share with people as far as numbers, advice, any kind of last words that you would give to people listening in right now?
I would say, prepare. I typically speak to a number of athletes that I talk to, as you do as well, about nutrition. And I just can't say enough about nutrition. Preparing themselves prior to getting on the field or getting in a race car, et cetera. Prepare yourself before you leave the house. Make sure that you're eating and consuming the things that are going to keep you at your, at your optimal nutritional level. Because there are other things out there. It's not just Corona. Make sure you continue to practice social distancing, washing your hands, and just keeping a healthy body, healthy mind. And we'll get out of this at some point.
Awesome. Dr. Jason, thanks for answering all the questions. Thank you for being here. And thanks for all the work you're doing on the front lines. And thanks for joining us. Once again, look forward to the next update.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me, David.